Well, Dan Hough is director of the Sussex Centre for the Study of Corruption at the University of Sussex, and he joins me now from Brighton. Good evening to you. Thanks very much for being with us. With the huge amounts of money from sponsorship deals and from TV rights for the World Cup, how difficult is it going to be for the new president of FIFA, whenever he's chosen, to deal with corruption in the organisation?
Well, it may well be that we've done the relatively easy bit, and that is to get rid of Sepp Blatter. But the challenges that the new president will have are manifold. It's worth remembering that he's going to have to get elected in by many people who supported Sepp Blatter. The candidates that you mentioned in your previous footage, people like Michel Platini, have a number of significant, powerful enemies. So we're going to have to wait a little bit of time before we even know who the candidates are for this new position. Ultimately, we need root and branch reform. Whether the new leader is actually capable of showing the dynamism to do that is still very much open to question.
Yeah, I mean, did you at the centre at Sussex look into corruption at the IOC? Have you looked into that in the past?
Well, we've looked into corruption in a number of different settings, in companies, in governments, and in international organisations. And there are a number of things that really stand out time and time again as being important in reforming organisations like the IOC and like FIFA. Two buzzwords, transparency and accountability, come to the fore. FIFA is going to have to swallow its pride. It's going to have to let the forensic accountants in. It's going to have to allow people to pass judgment on it. It needs external oversight of all of its procedures. And up until now, FIFA has simply never been willing to do that. Now, one would hope that with a new start comes new thinking, but I'd hold fire on that for a moment. There's a long way to go in this story, and it's worth remembering that there are a lot of people with a lot of vested interest within FIFA who supported Blatter, who still support Blatter, who will be resistant to change.
Is it surprising to you that there hasn't been more pressure in the past from big international sponsors, as well as individual football associations, to become more transparent, and that in fact, you know, we had a ticking time bomb really that has exploded now?
Well, I think it's easy to overlook the fact that FIFA's been really successful. FIFA's generated huge funds. Sepp Blatter has been very clever in diverting them to significant parts of the developing world, in Asia, in Africa, and they've supported him for it. That they've known there are corruption problems. This is nothing new to FIFA delegates. But while the money kept flowing, while FIFA kept supporting them, that they saw no reason not to support Blatter and those around him. The sponsors are in a similar position. This is a good deal for them. And it was always going to take an awful lot for sponsors to break rank and openly criticise Sepp Blatter and his supporters. And even now, sponsors are cagey. They're waiting to see how things develop. And the investigations in both Switzerland and the United States, which are two quite distinct investigations, have got a long way to go. So I think sponsors will be just waiting to see where they go before making too many definitive statements.
Very interesting. Dan Hough there at the University of Sussex. Many thanks, Dan. Thank you.
But whether he actually will go remains to be seen. But the outside world, and certainly the anti-corruption community, has no doubt about it that this starts at the top. He has to take moral responsibility, even if he doesn't take legal responsibility, and he has to move on, yeah.
FIFA, and I find this staggering, has tried to reform itself before and failed. It seems that this two-tier ethics committee, the oversight panels and the bodies that they have been utterly asleep at the wheel.
Again, spot on. The problem they have is the institutional infrastructure looks quite good, but the culture that underpins it never changed. And when decision processes are still made in smoke-filled rooms, away from the glare of public attention, then inevitably you're going to have practices like these developing. So I'm afraid the institutional infrastructure might look grand, but if you don't have transparency and you don't have accountability, then you lead yourself into cul-de-sacs like this.
Why has good governance been so elusive at FIFA, Dan, and who's going to set the record straight?
Well, ultimately, the problem's a long-standing one. And the way that FIFA has worked is FIFA's been very successful at generating money. Football's as big now as it's ever been, and of course it's getting bigger. So while things are going well, it's easy for FIFA to gloss over the internal governance issues that they've had. Ultimately, they're not secure enough to invite independent analysts in and to smell the coffee. And the only reason they're doing that now, or they're likely to do that in the future, is because you have the long arm of the law chasing them down, and that ultimately concentrates the mind. And change will have to happen, there's no doubt about that. The big question is, how will they proceed this week with their annual Congress, and then to try and bring in these notions of transparency and accountability in a believable way.
So the big question is, where does this leave 2018? Where does this leave 2022 and the big money sponsors, Dan?
Yeah, well, there are two different investigations at play, and it's worth remembering that firstly, in the United States, these are about long-standing historical corruption allegations about CONCACAF, and that's very different to what's going on in Switzerland with the legal authorities there. I think ultimately there will be pressure to rerun these bids. The vast majority of external advisors, people like my good self, would argue that they have no choice but to rerun these bids. But Sepp Blatter will only do that when he has absolutely no other options on the table. It would be good if sponsors would come to the fore and express their dissatisfaction with the process. I suspect there'll be legal challenges ultimately. Certainly the Australians have already expressed discomfort at having to pay £40 million last time for a bid that it looks like they were never going to win. And I think that if we carry on as we have done over the last 24 hours, then these processes may well have to be unpacked. But it's not something FIFA's ever going to do willingly.
Did it surprise you that the whistle was blown on these allegations of corruption in the US and not in Europe, which I guess we can argue is the spiritual home of soccer? What does that tell you?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. First of all, the US has quite a long history of taking on effectively international issues. It also has a legal infrastructure that's quite well suited for this. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act from 1977 allows US officials to point the finger at people who've done any business in the United States. And of course, a lot of these transactions happened on US soil. Some touched US banks, and for that reason, the US does have the legal right to take these issues forward. Most other countries don't have legal frameworks that are as rigorous as that. So in that sense, it's not a major surprise that the US takes the lead. That it's working with the Swiss authorities is a good thing. Of course, FIFA is based in Switzerland. They're asking different questions, but the two-pronged attack means that ultimately I think they're likely to have much more impact together.
And Dan, how do you reckon this is going down with the fans? Is it no major surprise at all to most lovers of the beautiful game that FIFA is so corrupt?
Well, I think one of the many ironies yesterday was that FIFA said that it was a sad day for the fans that this was happening. I mean, I'm a football fan myself, and I don't see that at all. Fans are very pleased to see this. We've long known that allegations were in the room about FIFA. We couldn't put numbers on them, but even a passing knowledge of the way that football works will lead you to these allegations and to the problems that FIFA has had. So I think the broader football community is very pleased at what it's seen. It could be the start of something genuinely different. Football fans have seen false dawns with FIFA before, such as the two ethics committees that were set up 3 or 4 years ago. So I think fans are very pleased, and they really do hope that this is the start of something different.